Hello and welcome back to another episode of your favourite educational podcast, where today I would like to provide a critical analysis grounded in human psychology, physiology, and most importantly female opinion of how men tell men to dress.
Oh. That's it, I'm not going.
The primary case study we'll be discussing today is Speed, if you will, whose recent male-centered discussion on being well-dressed provides useful insight in male self-presentation and how it is evaluated by other males. Like any good businesswoman, I pay great attention to the performance of my craft, and my business is malleable. It changes in response to 1, how I'm feeling, and 2, how you are feeling, because what am I here for if not to teach those eager to learn? To provide you with the most relevant and appropriate syllabus, I have pulled an Uno reverse card on our parasocial relationship, and have indulged in a bit of meta-parasocial practice. Some may call this stalking, data theft. I call it marketing. We all know that what we say and how we behave can misalign for many reasons, so to take into account all of these reasons, I decided not to ask you, but to study you. In one of my most recent study sessions, I came across something that I'd not seen on my channel before. You've been cheating on me with this guy. So like any diligent and loving partner, I needed to see what's so great about him that you can't get at home. Thank you, vinTED, for working with me on today's video. vinTED. If you are an avid listener of this educational podcast, you'll know that I often complain about my piles. Piles of stuff I have to get rid of in order to move on to the next stage of attaining the wardrobe of my dreams. I've already told you what I'm planning to buy, that's not the hard bit, and you already know what I'm interested in, so please do read up on the syllabus if you feel you're falling behind. But finally, I've actually done something about my terrible piles. Thanks to vinTED, now you can have piles too. From a 100% 5-star next day shipping seller. That's me. I've listed so many of my things on vinTED for you to love all over again. Please come along to my shop. Do come along to my shop because I really want to buy a load of new things. I have to shift what I already own before I obtain anything new in order to maintain the balance of stuff in my life. If there is anything the law of conservation of mass has ever taught us, it's that matter cannot be created or destroyed in a closed system. The closed system being my wardrobe. The clothes system. In order to accumulate, I must first dissipate. My piles. To you. If there are no vinTED supporters, I am dead. I don't know where I would be without her. There are no seller fees, so you can start listing with nothing in your pocket, and you receive all of the money that you sell your item for. Thank you, vinTED, for choosing to partner with me. It's truly a dream come true. So today we will be analysing male behaviour and psychology, analysing both historical and contemporary views of masculinity, the prescription of authority amongst men, particularly with reference to fashion, and the response of men to this narrative as a whole. For simplicity, I've shortened this to how men tell men to dress, and we have my good friend Speed to thank for assisting me with the discussion. Throughout, there will of course be the underlying argument that there is nothing that Speed can give you that I can't, maybe with the only exception being audio quality, but I'm sure you'll be very interested to know that my father is currently running some diagnostic tests on my microphone because I'm having beef with it, and like any good father figure, he takes great interest in everything I do, so despite being a logical mathematical genius, this is what he spends his Saturday nights doing.
Okay, hello and welcome back to D-Dog TV. Okay, this week we've got something a little bit different for you, and I hope you're going to like it. Here it comes. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
These are the musings of the most intelligent man I'm yet to come across and believe has ever existed. A man whom I'm sure had hopes that his offspring would similarly be experts in their field, and to some extent that is true. His only son follows in his footsteps. Computer science prodigy, software engineer in London. Did go through a phase of wanting to make music for video games, but we don't talk about that. And his daughter, academically gifted child, medical school alumna of a London Russell Group university, and yet I have a career talking to men on the internet. But despite not understanding the aesthetics of performatively using wired headphones as a microphone in a YouTube video with the incorrect aspect ratio, my father supports me and provides his expertise wherever he can. And why, you may ask, am I divulging all of this personal information about myself? I, of course, do this with the hope of strengthening my argument by establishing epistemic authority, through evidence of academic credibility and familiarity with positive male role models. Now, hopefully, as I have proven to be a worthy educational podcast host, and this educational podcast is no place for red pills being thrown out of the pram, I would like to read you the following disclaimer as I'm painfully aware that I'm on the internet.
The following information is not intended to characterize men as a whole. Neither is it to speak on behalf of all women. Any guidance offered is contextual and non-prescriptive. Individual outcomes will vary, and no particular result is implied or guaranteed.
I don't hate men, I hate everyone. This is James, my good friend James. Last week, James made a video titled Dress Better Without Buying Anything, where he gave 6 pieces of fashion advice implicitly addressed to men, which were as follows.
Number 1, look at pictures of dudes on the internet. It's not about the item, it's about the effect. The 3-3-3 drill. Tuck in your shirt. Get your clothes tailored. And finally, try.
So, number 1. Look at dudes on the internet. Don't need to tell me twice. Not only is the internet a great source of information due to its size and accessibility, they don't call it the World Wide Web for nothing, but also this is a rather amusing activity. Of course, the degree of amusement you can get from it differs on a case-by-case basis, but I'm sure you can appreciate that for the most part, this is excellent advice and something I'm very familiar with as a self-appointed researcher of male aesthetics. So, reading this line as it stands, I would say perfect, say no more. However, James goes on to explain himself.
I'm sure that some of you guys follow fitness influencers to learn how to eat or work out better. This is no different. Follow some fashion dudes.
We will go on to dissect this more, but for now can I just say that this is the only piece of information that James shares in the whole video that I disagree with. Contrary to what his advice implies, and what he goes on to explain, I believe that dudes on the internet that dress well encompasses more than just fashion influencers. If you are a friend of the channel, I often go as far as saying paradoxically fashion influencers are excluded from this group. Fashion influencers can be objectively good at marketing fashion content whilst not being actually well dressed, or giving good fashion advice, because the conditions under which they dress are misaligned with essentially reality. Views and followers are an objective measure of content success, so where the success of an influencer is based on these metrics, the people you are likely to find when you look for fashion influencers are going to be sorted according to views and followers, rather than the validity of their fashion advice. There is no regulation to how good the fashion advice is. Their success is based on their influencing ability, not on their fashion skills. The influencer economy rewards novelty and clickability, so a fashion influencer needs to come up with new content in every post to appease the algorithm, as we may say in the industry. The rate of outfit turnover they are required to maintain is beyond anything a normal person would turn over doing their non-fashion influencer activities, because their success depends on constant renewal. In far fewer words, fashion influencers follow fashion trends because it's the easiest way to generate new content. A normal person can wear an outfit, get a compliment, and repetir por favor, as my Spanish teacher would say. Whereas people would lose interest in a fashion influencer if they're wearing the same thing in all of their Instagram posts. You already saved it to your fits folder. You don't need to see it again tomorrow on a different zebra crossing. More obtusely, if an influencer is not dressing for views, they are dressing because they are being paid to, which is not bad. Influencers are not bad for doing this. I don't believe this is their job, but you can choose how you receive the information. Just recognize that no matter what this $500 jacket actually looks like.
First and foremost, we have to talk about this packaging. We have this lovely custom cardboard box. Also have this lovely illustration. Thank you, Nick. But moving on to what's important, which is the jacket itself. Off first glance, I immediately noticed that it has a really good weight to it, which is both from the fabric as well as all of the hardware. Speaking of which, we have a Riri zipper, which are very expensive. We also have this custom leather patch. As a first Yurimon item, I'm very impressed by all the branding. I have this tag with lots of writing, as well as the content tag. This is a 43% alpaca, 37% wool, 20% nylon Japanese wool, 20% nylon Japanese wool, and the lining is a 100% poly peach skin.
They're going to tell you it's great if they are getting thousands of pounds compensation, commission based on how many people buy it from them, a brand trip to the Maldives if they keep up the good work, and a free $500 jacket. Smart people these fashion influencers are. Maldives vlog coming soon. But with the exception of follow fashion influencers, everything else James goes on to say with regards to looking at pictures of dudes on the internet is actually great. Something that I see very little in fashion-based content is the step-by-step how-to-esque practical advice on how to actually dress better. Fashion content is generally centered around trends, as I said. You could argue that this is a more systematic issue, but even if it is a sustainable anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist, insert topical buzzword fashion YouTube channel, a lot of the time it is either content pertaining to not following said trends, or content pertaining to trends that are less commodifiable, so as not to misalign with a sustainable, anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist, everything is propaganda ethical code. For example, at the moment, current fashion trends that fall under this category are individuality, authenticity, and going offline, which out of context sounds bizarre and something I've said before that I think is stupid as fashion advice, because what do you mean I have to be authentic? to dress better without buying anything. This is not practical advice. And I think this is something that really stands out to me in James's video, that he actually says, despite me not agreeing with it, follow fashion influencers, like it's a tick box activity. And you may argue that, well, James's audience are different to the typical audience of a fashion creator. Men following James like cars, so you can compare their understanding of cars to the level the average fashion content consumer has of fashion. In which case, you might suggest that the information in James's video is below typical fashion content consumer level. Fashion content consumers are already following fashion influencers. They don't need to be told this at the level of interest in fashion they have. So why do they all look like this? This surface-level fashion content isn't really good for any actual fashion enrichment. It is not completely redundant in the space as content, because it's entertainment. Some people like fashion brain rot disguised as cultural commentary. If you didn't, you wouldn't be watching this channel. If you want high-level specialized fashion commentary, you are not going to get it from me, but you're also not going to get it from these guys. But as I say, from the data I have at my disposal, these are different audiences, because the people watching my videos like this, are also watching videos like this, not like this. My favorite litmus test for identifying a fashion freak, a real fashion freak, is show them a picture of this guy and ask them who it is. The spectrum of people who watch my videos look something like this, I imagine. But anyway, this is not important. What I was talking about was box ticking, a non-conceptual, non-abstract form of instruction great for beginners. You've either done it or you haven't. Box ticking activities, James goes on to mention under his first piece of advice, excluding follow fashion influencers, are as follows. Make a collection on Instagram dedicated to clothes. Identify consistencies once you have built a collection. Excellent advice. Something I do myself. The only thing I have to add here with regards to his first statement on following fashion influencers is that the outfits you save don't have to be from fashion pages. Consume the content you normally do, but just every time you notice a good outfit, save it. You can't go out and find what you like. The collection will become too influenced, too artificial. You just have to let it take time and let yourself come across it. For example, you follow Jeremy Clarkson because he's the only car guy I know, other than my good friend James, and I'm trying to relate to my audience. The outfits you see on Clarkson's page are going to be much more, if you excuse the colloquialism, authentic than on a 20-year-old fashion bros page who is trying to get content out 3 times a day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Jeremy Clarkson. For example, this guy works on his farm. This outfit is going in my fits collection immediately. Next, James goes on to tell us it's not about the item, it's about the effect. Just to provide a bit of context, he is particularly talking about identifying what you like about an outfit, asking what you think you can recreate rather than buying the exact piece of clothing that you see in that outfit.
How can you use what you have to achieve the same effect? Take a look at this dude's outfit, for example. He looks cool as hell.
This more so comes under the without buying anything theme of the video over the dress better theme, but I think it can perform to some degree under both. This is where the first step is crucial in making a good collection of outfits, because the wider the pool of subjects, the more iterations the thing you like is likely to present in. So the more accurate the judgment in identifying what you actually like is. James and I have very similar taste, because in case you haven't noticed, the outfit James likes, the outfit he creates, and the outfit I selected whilst gathering inspiration all feature the same thing. And this hopefully demonstrates the importance of building a collection, because you can identify the commonality more reliably. So where I like all of these things in this guy's outfit, this is the one he has in common with the other outfits. So, you can identify before you start growing a mullet, you could wear a red t-shirt, Another example of me and James having very similar taste is the introduction of Canadian chef and my very good friend, Matty Matheson.
Or we can look at this photo of Matty Matheson. Historically, one of the dudes who has the most influence on my personal sense of style.
Who, if you're a friend of the channel, you'll know well from such films as Wearing versus Styling Menswear. Matty Matheson. He is just swimming in the sauce. He just seems to absolutely have this effortless, ineffable quality, this sprezzatura. James tells us that he gets a lot of his style inspiration from Mr. Matheson. And the key piece of advice he gives us is focus on the vibe.
Focus on the vibe.
And identifies Mr. Matheson's vibe as dad at the barbecue that has been to jail before.
The vibe is obvious. It's a dad at a barbecue who's been to jail before.
This is what women call an aesthetic. And in some cases, despite the rhetoric you hear most often on fashion YouTube, aesthetics and cores and these kind of pre-packaged styling options can be useful. They can be useful as inspiration. They start getting harmful when you label yourself as part of a group and change your way of life to adhere to your aesthetic. But I think James actually indirectly suggests to us that we need to smooth over this by saying, I don't own this, but I do own this and like this about this outfit, so let me do it with what I've already got, which is a much better way of giving fashion advice than how to dress old money or Gorp core essentials. I wanted to touch on James's style icon of choice for a moment. He says Matty Matheson is historically one of the dudes that has the most influence on his personal sense of style.
Historically, one of the dudes who has the most influence on my personal sense of style.
And I wanted to relate this back to my earlier argument about fashion influencers. I think Matty Matteson is a particularly good source of fashion inspiration because he is not a fashion influencer. He's a chef, giving him the aesthetic distance that fashion influencers lack. In Edward Bullow's 1912 paper on psychical distance as a factor in art and aesthetic principle, he argues that aesthetic experience depends on distance between the perceiver and the perceived. Where self-interest dominates, the perceived is apprehended instrumentally rather than aesthetically. Bullow illustrates this with experiencing a fog at sea. Being a pirate on a boat in a storm with little distance to the object of perception is going to elicit a very different comprehension of the situation than me on my phone scrolling pictures of pirates. The distance allows the object to be aesthetically evaluated, as there is no impending doom elicited by the closeness, both in physical distance to the object, but also in psychical distance to self-interest. You are thinking a lot more about yourself in this situation than you are in this situation. With reference to the distinction between fashion influencer and non-fashion influencer, but still creatively inclined figures such as Matty Matteson, the fashion influencer exists in the storm with too much attention paid to algorithmic novelty and commercial incentives, reducing aesthetic distance by placing us, as the consumer, in too close proximity as fashion as a strategy or content, as opposed to Matty, who, whilst having this proximity to food, does not to fashion. His content is not organised around fashion as a primary communicative or economic anchor, which is what Bullow would describe as a psychical distance between him and fashion, and also between us as the consumer of his content for fashion purposes, because we are not the intended audience or the subject of his marketing, as we are not consuming his content for food in this exercise. His status of being a chef introduces a distance that fashion influencers lack, that allows us as the consumer to experience a more authentic sense of fashion, as it is interpreted as lived and temporally stable, rather than optimized and perpetually revised for the demands of visibility. Just to illustrate this further, on the 25th of January, Matty Matteson did a paid advertisement with Mushroom Council. This was an incredibly well executed ad.
Just genuinely incredible. Genuinely. Oh, I don't know. Is it chicken or is it a beautiful mushroom? You don't know. Oh my god. Oh my god. That bangs, this bangs. It's not magic. It's mushrooms.
Mr. Matteson did a wonderful job of integrating another brand seamlessly into his own. Mr. M. Matteson is an all-American home-style comfort food chef and the author of multiple self-titled books with recipes such as the following. So to be able to sell his audience the starving 2016 vegan aesthetic is a testament to his talent as a creator.
Is this real chicken? It's vegan chicken. You couldn't even tell the difference.
However, as someone who has actually made a life choice to eat this shit, I'm not actually particularly familiar with the complete Matty Matteson repertoire, so I invite you to answer the following question. Would this be something Matty Matteson would create of his own volition? And following on from this, would it be appropriate to suggest that actually the focus of a creator's content may be influenced by factors other than love for the craft? For this reason, I personally believe in not specifically targeting Matty Matteson, because I actually think this is an excellent partnership, and executed flawlessly. Good for both Mushroom Council because they are reaching Matty Matteson's audience who might not think twice about mushrooms, and good for Matty because maybe he's reaching wider audiences of people who like plant-based food, all whilst maintaining his brand identity as a comfort chef and comfort character. But I personally believe that it may just be an example of how the focus of a creator's content may not actually be as authentically their own as other components due to economic or otherwise self-serving incentives. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, for the same reason that taking inspiration from Matty Matteson's fashion taste is a good idea, following James's fashion advice is a good idea, because they both possess a similar psychical distance from fashion. James and James's channel, Speed, focuses on cars, life and technology, so you can appreciate James's psychical distance to cars is a lot smaller than his psychical distance to fashion. And actually following the same rhetoric, this is also why it's a good idea to follow my fashion advice as a woman talking about menswear. To illustrate the concept with reference to fashion, I would like to present you with the following. You can appreciate that, as we have discussed, with too little psychical distance, the execution of an outfit is poor due to economic incentives or algorithmic compliance, driven by economic incentives or otherwise, leading to an outfit colloquially described as inauthentic. But with too great of a psychical distance, the performance is essentially random due to lack of thought, need or interest at all. Here lie the fashion influential, here lie the fashion ignorant, and here lies me. Just the right amount of psychical distance to uphold an optimal level of execution, giving me the ability to provide critique that is informed, whilst not being so immersed in the internal logic of fashion that my judgment is insular and conceptual, and the outcome bizarre and out of touch. If you prefer a more philosophical analysis, in Kantian terms, you have to be nonchalant. According to Kant's account of aesthetic judgment, one requires a level of disinterest to be able to successfully evaluate aesthetic performance. Colloquially, you may know this as nonchalance. Nonchalance. One must be distant enough from the object to be disinterested in it, and this disinterest allows one to provide a judgment void of personal gain, practical use, desire, or possession. In fewer words, aesthetic judgment requires distance from self-interest. In fewer words still, aesthetic judgment requires nonchalance. An important distinction to make here is the difference between ignorance and nonchalance. Where there is no investment at all in the object, the judgment essentially becomes random. With no sensitivity at all to the object, there is simply not enough information to provide an informed evaluation, so the judgment is poor. To amalgamate all of this information, modernize the terminology, and direct towards fashion, I present you with the following. Just to circle all this back to the point at hand, in conclusion, due to a fashion influencer's immersion in fashion, you'd expect them to exist here. Whereas myself, James and Matty care enough that we can appreciate, but are nonchalant enough that we do not fall into the trap of trying too hard, which I'll go on to talk about later, but please be aware that the lecture is not finished. So if you would like to get up and stretch your legs, I think now is a good time to take a break. I will see you all back here in 10 minutes.
Hours later.
Welcome back, everyone. So the next part of today's episode will be more practical than theoretical, in line with the format used by James on Speed. James introduces us to the 3-3-3 drill.
Go to your closet and select the following 3 items. 3 tops, 3 bottoms, 3 pairs of shoes. Mix and match the items to make every combination possible.
A drill completed by men that women know as playing dress up. Those of you who have completed the pre-reading will know that the underlying practice that actually makes this game useful, I call looking in the mirror. So what you're going to do here is put your jeans on and look in the mirror. Useful even at the dress rehearsal stage after each outfit iteration, because this becomes essential when you take what you've learnt from the drill and apply it to the real world, when after you get dressed but before you leave the house, you look in the mirror. The game is complete when you like what you see. If you do not like what you see, keep playing the game until you do. If you are playing the game for fun and have nowhere to go, keep playing the game until the game is no longer fun. But as James says so eloquently,
I think you'll find that it's pretty fun.
James then introduces us to his guest speaker, Jake Wolf, who has a Substack, so we know he must be a fashion intellectual.
Jake Wolf is, in my opinion, one of the best dressed dudes on the entire God's green internet.
And his piece of advice is to tuck in your shirt.
Tuck in your shirt.
What I like about this fashion influencer, despite being a fashion influencer, who, as I've mentioned before, often give pieces of advice that are vague and conceptual, like be individual, be authentic, be nonchalant without any philosophical explanation, Jake gives you another box to tick. Another example of why this video is so good. Another example of great minds think alike. The crop top. So what do we wear instead of this? If you like the cropped length, I really like it when you tuck your shirt into your jeans. Stop chopping your crop tops. I don't know who told you that was a good idea, because it's not. And if this video does not get the same amount of views as James on Speed, that is just another example of the patriarchy. If you do not like and subscribe, you hate women. I did a whole episode on this, the concept of tucked versus untucked versus cropped, so do familiarise yourself with the content if you've forgotten. But supposing we are not wearing a crop top and our shirt is of tuckable length, to add to the information that I gave in that video, and add to the idea proposed by Jake that you should necessarily tuck in your shirt, I believe there are both successful and unsuccessful archetypes of the untucked shirt. What archetype you fall into depends on your crotch. To illustrate, in these examples you can see that the shirt hem lies lower than the crotch, whereas in these examples you can see that it lies above the crotch. If you are unsure of what archetype you are looking to achieve, going off Jake's advice that the tucked shirt will always be higher than the crotch, if you want to achieve a similar effect but with the variation of an untucked shirt, I'd go for this one. These guys are just too immersed in fashion for Jake. Penultimate piece of advice James has to give us in this video is
get your clothes tailored.
Arguably, this is better advice than knowing your measurements. Not to pit the mistresses against one another, but as you have heard me say on the podcast before, clothing sizes are not standardized even when measured in standardized units. You'll find that you'll be a 34-inch waist in these pants, a 28-inch waist in these pants, a medium in these, and a 32-inch waist in inches. So despite knowing that you are a 32-inch waist, you cannot possibly know what size will actually fit you simply by reading the label. So the easiest thing you're going to do here is try it on and say it with me now. Look in the mirror. But failing that, or as James says, if you or the item has changed size, or trends have changed since purchasing it, but you spent a lot of money on it, or it's one of a kind, or you still want to wear it, whatever, support your local tailor. Ask him to take in your pants. Finally, I told you that we would return to the idea of trying too hard, and here we are. James finishes his video by telling us simply to try.
And finally, try.
But it is never that simple. Which, to be fair to James, he does allude to, but as everyone on the internet will tell you, trying is a hard art to master. In the words of Kant, you have to be nonchalant but not ignorant. And in the words of Bullough, you have to be psychically distant but not psychically absent. There is a sweet spot that an outfit lies in that is neither trying too hard nor trying not at all, and the space is incredibly thin. But unlike other men's fashion videos you find on the internet, and what makes James' content unique in the space, is that he doubles down on trying hard and makes it feel acceptable. Male self-improvement content often falls under one of three categories. Fashion, be nonchalant. Self-care, smash your face in. Or lifestyle, be stoic, rich, and get up early. The advice ranges from vague and overly conceptual to unnecessary and harmful, but James creates little space for you where it's okay just to try things out. The acknowledgement James gives to the idea that people will make fun of you for trying confirms your thought process, lets you know he understands, but his advice to do it anyway makes it acceptable.
Caring about stuff is cool.
Essentially giving you permission in a space where masculinity is defined by not caring to care. To try. What he offers is more than a tick box exercise or set of instructions, which whilst I know you all love, is very black or white. What he offers is the creation of a space where appreciation of stereotypically non-masculine practices like self-care and fashion is hospitable, rather than embarrassing, performative, or painful. And the idea of trying does not threaten masculinity. I read James's comments and actually one he reads to us.
And every time I make a video about anything like this, the same comment is in the comment section at least a dozen times. All I need is jeans and a t-shirt. Well, yeah, man, good job.
Yeah, same. But actually what I wanted to say was this is the kindest, most comforting, non-judgmental collection of what I assume to be mostly straight males in their 20s and 30s comments I've ever seen in a YouTube video, where the host is also presumably a straight male, and the subject matter of the channel is also very straight male directed. I actually think it's quite cringy language to use to say that things are straight and male, because what do you mean? This is just a man talking about things he likes. But I think what makes this video so comforting, and what makes James so lovely as an agony aunt, more if you excuse the idiomatic phrase, positive male role model in this situation, is that this is a guy who likes cars talking about playing dress up, and I couldn't have enjoyed the video anymore. So just to reiterate what James says, try hard. Not too hard, and not at all, but care, because caring about stuff is cool. And that is all we have time for today. I really hope you enjoyed that video. I'll see you very incredibly soon with another one. Hopefully I've siphoned off some of James's subscribers. Enjoy your afternoon. Oh, and also, the podcasts are now on Spotify. So listen to them, please. And thank you also for being here, because you've basically given me the opportunity to work with vinTED, who at this point is basically the second host of this channel. But anyway. Bye.
Oh. That's it, I'm not going.